Okay, so back at it. My post-game conference was pretty accurate. I've been 3 weeks in a row there on games without watching tape. So, as always, got everybody back together on Sunday and had a good workout last night. And then day off today and working on Kansas to get ready to roll for the next one.
After watching film, you said that you were going to look and see what exactly was going on with the defense. What did you see in them after you saw film?
I thought that their game plan was better than ours in all three phases, not just particularly on defense, and they executed it really well. Then we got out of place late third quarter when we couldn't function on offense, turn the ball over, so on and so forth, and then it just kind of snowballed late.
Mike, you know how to read your team. You got a question last week about you can tell when they're focused and when they're not. Looking back, was there any sign that maybe you get so ready to go and played so well against Boise that I know you said that you practices you thought were really good. I mean, is there anything you look back at and you said maybe we weren't totally locked in?
You know, I'd like to say there was. They had better coaching schemes than we did. So it starts with the coaches, and if they have, well, let's just say we're playing poker, and you get a couple of aces to start with, and I get a 3 and a 4. Well, the aces were the coaching schemes that they had compared to ours, and their plans were better. Then they executed better than we did, but it started with the original hand. Unfortunately, we can't fold. We have to play it. But there's been a lot of times over the last 14 years that it's worked that way for us, but it didn't work that way Saturday. They did a better job with their schemes and concepts, and so their players executed them better than ours. I mean, we practiced just fine. I just don't – I'd like to be able to push it on that, but I don't think that's what happened.
As far as kind of the guys who got dinged up on Saturday, Calvin, Malcolm, and Dylan, what are their kind of statuses?
We won't know until tomorrow. They do all their medical work today and treatments and all that.
With Calvin in particular, what is him full speed versus whatever percentage he was at?
Not very good percentage. We should have taken him out. Should have taken him out right away as soon as it happened. He didn't help us much in the game based on he relies a lot on speed. And he was not moving very well. And so if we had to do it all over again, probably would have taken him out earlier.
When he is at full speed, what are the things in particular, beyond what we see?
Really what you see. I mean, he can come off the edge. He's a good blitzer. He can dip. He's flexible. He can get low. He's pretty powerful. He can run to the ball, make plays. Athletic.
Because of those skills, does this defense fit him pretty well?
I think so. I mean, I told you guys that we'll know a lot about our defense once we start getting in conference play and find out where he fits and what his role is and a lot of different things. And we saw a little more of what we'll see the majority time in conference play last Saturday. So we'll see how it progresses as we go through this and see how he fits into the system. And honestly, they're still learning the system. You don't learn it instantly. They're still kind of getting into the flow of it. It takes a little bit of time.
Like Justice averaged, I think, 9 yards a carry Saturday, but only touched it 12 times. How do you kind of process and correct that?
Process what?
That he only got it 12 times. How do you go?
Well, we got behind in the third quarter, and that didn't help. But if we'd be able to go back and do it again, you'd like to have pumped it to him about 18 times in that game. When you get behind late, not late, but late in the third quarter, you got to start to save a little clock and so on and so forth. But sure would like to have him touch it a few more times.
Along those lines, Mike, it was feast or famine. He had several big runs, but got caught behind the line of scrimmage a couple of times. And I know you love the chunk plays, but how do you kind of even that out? Because
they didn't even it out. They either blitzed everybody or they played 8-man drop. And when that happens, if they bring them all, you're going to get hit some. If they bring them all and you hit the cutback, you're going to hit them. And then if you play 8-man drop, you should get some decent runs. So they they brought heavy pressure or they played drop. They didn't really play in the middle. Pretty good concept, really, on their part.
Did you feel better about as a result, did you feel better about the offensive line after you looked at the tape?
No. I've been pretty good on that in the last 3 weeks. We have to do a better job of picking those things up. We've got a new guy or two in there, but we're a little further along now. We need to do a better job of picking up a lot of the pressure. We miss those guys at times, and so that sways it to I don't really see anything different than what I said after the game.
What do you think the prognosis is for those guys to correct those issues? I mean, where's your confidence level at getting better?
Well, we'll be coaching them. We coached them yesterday, and we'll be coaching them tomorrow and every day, and that's just what we do. I wish that we had a lot more practices before the next game, so you take little baby steps. You can't go out there and practice for 3 hours, and you try to get a little better in each stage, and minimize the missed assignments will help a lot. There were some things they did better in this game than we had done, but some of the mistakes they made forced us into some negative yardage plays, and that's really where it's pushed us into a jam offensively.
Mike, until that gets better and the issue is resolved, what can you and your staff, what can you guys do to work around those deficiencies?
Nothing. Not anything. I mean, there's several things in a car. You got to have a transmission, you got to have a radiator, you got to have a fuel pump. So that's part of the piece of the puzzle. You try to improve it. You can't just change who you are, and I don't think we necessarily need to. I think we have to look at where we're at and continue to improve on what we're doing, and that'll make it better.
A couple of years ago, you had issues similar to these. I believe I wasn't covering you at the time, but I know enough to realize that there were some leaks there in 14, I think maybe 15 a little bit.
You're talking about 4 years ago.
O-line, yeah, O-line wise. You say that there's nothing you can do. You tried some things to work around those issues back then. Assuming you did, can you draw on anything? I mean, in terms of if there's a scheme that you reinstall that helps you protect Cornelius better, or open holster your running backs better, or is it really just a dead end until that gets resolved?
Well, it's not a dead end, but you just have to take what you do and try to get better at it, and improve each day. I'd like to make it sound not so simple, but really this is what we do. These are the assignments we have on these plays, and we need to execute it. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Is it frustrating the fact that you've got such talented backs? Your best player is a running back, or your most dynamic player. Mm-hmm. We've seen what JD and Chuba can do as well. You talked extensively about the potential there. Does that make this more frustrating when you've got the horses? You just need to give them some room to run?
Not frustrating. I mean, it's part of coaching. It's what we do. You know, if they were all 4-point students and all Americans, they wouldn't hire coaches. You know, so it's not frustrating. We know what has to happen. You know, we just try to continue to work to get a little bit better each day, and they'll get better. We've got a couple guys that, for the most part, this is new to them. They haven't seen it, and sometimes that shows up. But I think they'll get better.
I know you'd said last week you wanted to lighten the running load a little bit on Taylor. What was it Saturday, if anything? And I know you mentioned getting behind probably did this as well. He had 14, I think, on a second possession, but played it pretty close to the vest with quarterback run. And did that have anything to do with Dakota Allen? And did you notice them spying or anything on Taylor?
Not really. It fell that way. Again, it's going back to some of the things that they did. In certain schemes, it's not built for that, so there wasn't as much of that in the game. And then in the fourth quarter, you fall behind, and it doesn't help. So there's just kind of a little bit of snowball effect there.
Their defense, I know this isn't your job to talk about their defense, but a little bit better than what people were giving it credit for coming in here?
I would say they were against us. They kicked our ass. But I can't say what will happen down the road. I mean, it's hard for me to tell based on matchups. And we could spend a lot of time talking about this, but basically they had better schemes than we did, and they executed them. I mean, it's really that simple.
What's the key to your defense bouncing back and having a better game?
Well, we tackled pretty good, really. Got out of place a couple times. I'm going to go back to what happens in games like that. When things are always going good, then you can open up and think differently in your play calling, and you can start turning the wheel, so it usually works in your favor. You guys have followed us for years. That's worked in our favor a lot of times, and that's what happened to them. And so Bundage should have come out earlier, in my opinion. We got caught on the cutback play, on the counter cutback play a couple times. Other than that, for the most part, we were in the right spot. We got caught down here on a quads in the boundary, and we're in a cover 2 look, and corner came inside, and the safety, we had a young kid playing safety. He got caught watching the play and didn't go to the half field coverage, turned the guy loose in the end zone. Some things like that can happen, and I had mentioned this to you guys in July that I was concerned about youth at the safety position, and it came to be true.
How much did Calvin St. Andrews have to do with the guys' position, depth at that position?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, he's a starter, so you want him in. I think it was more of just, he kind of said, okay, I can keep playing, and you just kind of leave him out there, and then after a while you go back and look and you say, wish you would have come out earlier, because he was a step slow pretty much from that point on.
Mike, what did you learn from watching Taylor's performance again?
Taylor's fine. We need to block better.
How have you kind of seen him handle his first loss?
You wouldn't know. Taylor's, you wouldn't know whether we lost or won. He's the same all the time.
Mike, could you roll him a little bit? Maybe if the pocket's not going to be as clean with the blocking issue, get him outside the pocket.
That's not really what we do. There's a little more to that than it just looks. I think one thing you have to be careful of is you try to put new schemes in. You can just. I've done that before in my career, and then came in at halftime of the game and said, this stinks. I'm going back to what we do. Really doesn't work that way, but you could, but that's not what we do.
You don't want to run him anymore. I mean,
Well, we want to run him some, but we don't want to make a living doing it. Yeah, I mean, I just worry about those guys getting hit. Just traditionally look at the quarterbacks in this league over the last 6 or 8 years. So I worry about that a little bit. If I knew he wasn't going to get hurt, I'd be all for it.
How difficult is it to adjust this year's season's team's offense compared to what you've been able to do the last couple of years? Is it difficult?
Well, I mean, we're doing the same stuff. I mean, you watch us; we look the same. It's just you obviously don't have the one thing. Well, there's 2 things that look different. Obviously, James Washington not running down the field and throwing it up, and him accelerating under the ball. Nobody in the country had that. And then Aitman was a dangerous threat backside. So we've got guys that are making plays out there, but they're not going to fall into the NFL category at this particular time. They're not that far along. Do I think they will? Sure, but there's still some youth there and inexperience. So, like any other year, I mean, just try to play to our strengths. And I wish 5 would have touched the ball more. But I wish we wouldn't have dropped a few passes and dropped a punt too. And that's really what it comes down to.
I know that Tylen had the mistake on the punt you just mentioned, and you could see over on the bench area how guilty he felt about that. But as a receiver, how pleased are you with his development? Because I mean, his ball skills one-on-one,
he's along.
Almost unbeatable.
Right. Yeah, he's coming along. He's if he continues to work hard and allow himself to be coached and developed and all those things, he'll be a kind of guy that people will be really scared of in the future. He just needs a little development, still very young, and he doesn't have a lot of experience now. He didn't get to play a lot last year. So, he's only really been in, I'm going to guess total play-wise, what would be the comparison to maybe 5 games in his career.
Can you talk a little bit about Kansas defense? And Clint Bowen has been in this league toiling away at his alma mater about as long as you have, and doesn't always get a lot of credit for it, but he seems to me to be a pretty sharp
doing a good job,
coach.
Yeah, they're 3 down and drop 8 and 2 trap and 3 in quarters and try to bring guys off the edge and corral the middle of the field and force the ball outside and rally and make tackles is what they're doing. I mean, it's really close to what they did last year, moved a little bit more into that phase than what they had done in the past. So that's what you're going to get.
You talked about Taylor being even-keeled. You can't tell if he lost or won. When he talked to us after the game, he seems to really put a lot on his shoulders as far as what he takes responsibility for.
He does, yeah. It's important to him. He cares a lot, and so like all of us, we want to have success. Saturday is your showtime. It's your opportunity to go out on stage, and when it doesn't work or coaching wasn't good or we didn't play good, you're kind of disappointed, and you would really want it to be that way. So you get 6, 8, 12 hours to do it, and then you got to come back to work the next day, and you got to adjust and go on down the road.
Do you worry about him at this sort of young stage in his actual playing career being too hard on himself?
No, he's fine. He practiced good last night. He just cares. He just cares. It's important to him. I'm not concerned with that at all with him. Also, one announcement, Jalen McCleskey is not with us anymore. He did not feel good about us getting the ball to him, so he's decided to redshirt and transfer. So we're going to let him set the rest of the year. Just so you guys will know, that decision was made this morning. Good?
Did it come as a surprise to you? Was it?
Based on this new rule, not really. I think you'll see I think you'll see a lot of that. So he's been awesome for us. I hated to see it. I think he's got 175 catches in his career or something. I don't know the numbers, but he's been awesome and great young man, great family. He just didn't feel like that he was getting the ball enough, and wants to save his year and sit and transfer to another school. So, I mean, if that's what guys on the team want to do, I mean, that's what, we're going to allow them to do that.
Do you think this is kind of an unintended consequence of that new rule?
That's a big word for me. What does all that mean? I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just, you took a lot more classes than I did probably in English.
When they made that rule, that was something they considered as a possibility?
It could be an issue. That's a really good question. If I was just to throw something out there, it probably should be a rule that would be consistent within your first 2 years of eligibility. Based on, could be very popular in the future. So the NCAA is going to have to take a hard look, because right now the rules, forget Jalen's situation, the rules don't allow us to add a number to that. So let's say you had 5 guys do it. Well, I'm playing with 80 instead of 85 on scholarship now, and I can't replace those numbers even at the semester. And they also count against your APR. So probably a little bit of a loophole that the NCAA didn't consider. They're might have to rethink how you're going to do that, because if you have open door transfer policy, which is becoming somewhat liberal now in the country, then we as coaches and the organization probably needs to be able to reuse those numbers some way to get back to an 85, because we can't control that. So they probably need to put some thought into that.
I think he's got more career catches than anybody on the roster. How much does this affect you guys these next 8 games?
Sure, you lose a good player, but we live in a world where things like that happen now, and transfers becoming very popular. And so what would keep a young man from doing that all across the country at any given time? But if they come to you and say, hey, I'm not getting the ball enough, and I feel like that I need to be somewhere that allows that to happen, then you have to give him that opportunity. I mean, I don't have any right to keep him here. And I couldn't anyway. He could just walk off. I mean, the ball's in his court. So we had a good meeting this morning, told him that I didn't think it was the best decision, but I certainly would support it, just like I would my own son that would be that age, if that's what he chooses to do, and hated to see it happen. But if that's what he wants to do, then I cannot prevent that from happening. But my concern, selfishly, and our staff's concern, is the other 134 guys on our team that we're trying to get ready to play for the next game. And those are decisions that just have to be made.
So he'll graduate here and then use his...
I don't know if he'll graduate. He would... he could just transfer. No, he doesn't have to graduate. He can just roll right on out.
Mike, you Think this has anything to do? His dad's now coaching at Tulane. Does he want to go play for his dad?
I wouldn't want to get into all that. I mean, that's his business. And really, Robert, to be truthful, the reason I'm making this announcement now is when we have these situations, the best thing to do is be up front. Let's talk about it. Let's get it out there. There's no reason to hide things. I did not ask him where he wanted to transfer to. I only went over the procedures that we have in place here, and then he's obviously free and welcome to do whatever he wants to do. And I want to make this clear. I'm not upset with the young man. I'm just being honest with y'all. There's no reason to beat around the bush. It is what it is.
Was today the first time that he'd come to you about this?
No, he had mentioned it earlier, but you know, you look at it from my standpoint. We can't control who touches the ball all the time, especially at the wide receiver position. You know, and this is a little bit of exaggeration, but like, did y'all watch it? I saw the very end of the Patriots game last night. Did y'all see what they did to Gronk? What the coach at Detroit, had two guys up on him. Two guys stood over the top of him on third down and just basically said, "You're not getting the ball." And so sometimes, depending on what defenses do, like last year, there was people that could take James Washington away based on what they did. So other people get the ball, and when that happens, we can't control that. And we're certainly not going to tell our quarterback, "We want you to throw this guy," for certain reasons. And he didn't ask us to do that, but that's what you would be doing. We're not going to do that. Offense is one guy gets the ball and 10 unselfish guys have to go play their ass off. That's the way offensive football is.
Did it surprise you when you first heard of this, just because of how productive he's been throughout his career?
Well, it surprised me because of his career. He's a name guy, all that. But this new rule with how liberal it is to just get up and walk out is gonna start to show whatever side of an ugly face it has in the future, in my opinion. And I'm not against the rule. I'm good, but they just need to tinker with it a little bit to make sure that it's better for everybody involved if a player just wants to leave. And everybody's been wanting that, right? I mean, everybody in the country, the fans, y'all been writing about it. Kids need to be able to leave whenever they want. So that's what everybody wants, so that's where we're at.
You mentioned how the receiving corps is a young group in general, and you have Jalen, one of the most experienced guys. So how much responsibility does that put on Tylen and Tyron and guys like that to make sure it's
Well, we've got other guys. 88 can play. I mean, 13 can play. 2 can play. 81's healthy now. He ought to be able to make some plays. We can do a few things different here and there. That's just part of it. Guys get hurt, and other guys have to play. And now I think guys transfer, and other guys have to play.
Landon Wolf, do you expect him to slot into that, or is there kind of a open competition of different schemes?
He's next inside guy, yeah. You know, and so 17's in there, and you know, hopefully he's healthy enough to play this week. But it's fine. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's you know, it is what it is, and everybody has their own role in life and decisions we make, and for whatever's best for ourselves or Jalen and going down the road.
This being the 4th game this week of the year, it might be a yearly occurrence now.
If you were a betting guy, and I know you're not, I would say you could stake some money on that. You'd get pretty good odds on that in the future. In fact, you might see it somewhere else. Now, I don't know if anybody else will be as honest as I am with it, but you might see it show up next week. But the best thing to do is talk about it, right? Here it is. It's all out there.
Beyond Stoner and Wolf, we talked about Trayson already being injured. You're getting really thin, it seems like, an inside.
Thinner than what we've been. Yeah. But it is what it is. We don't have plan B. I don't think they have an NFL anymore, do they? They got rid of plan B. Can't pick guy up on the wires, let's put it that way. So that's why we have coaches, and that's why they get paid all the money they get paid, figure something out, and come up with a plan. Let's keep rolling.
Mike, as you said just a little bit ago, there's only so many balls can go around receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, when a kid like Jalen comes to you and says, "I wasn't getting it enough," is there any part of you that wonders, was he getting it enough?
You can't in our offense. We can't do it. Chris Lacey is a really good college football player. Had 19 catches last year. And he's still on some team now, right? On somebody's practice team? Huh? I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you're not going to throw it to James, or you're not going to throw it to Aitman, you're not going to throw it to 17, or last year one had, 50-something catches?
Yeah, I mean, he's in our top 10.
Yeah. So what are you going to do, you know? The quarterback's got to go through his progression and do what he's got to do. He can't worry about who's doing what. So defenses have gotten smart over the last few years, and they can determine a lot of that, with the exception of maybe handing the ball to 5 more, you know. But who gets the ball out there on the perimeter, really tough.
Good?